I thought it was the ham. Turns out the ham wasn't the thing poisoning me that night. Let me back up. My name is Frank Rowell. I'm 57 years old, and until Christmas Eve 2024, I considered myself a reasonably lucky man. Retired carpenter, paid-off house in a decent New England town, 2 grown kids who called me every couple weeks. Not rich, not poor, just comfortable. That's what I thought anyway. The first sign something was wrong came around 7:30, halfway through dinner at my son Evan's place. We were all crammed around his dining room table. Me, Evan, his wife Marissa, and my daughter Claire, who'd driven up from Boston. The house had that forced, cheerful vibe you get when someone's trying too hard with the decorations. Fake garland everywhere, those battery-powered candles in every window, a ceramic Santa collection crowding the mantel. The whole place smelled like vanilla potpourri and microwaved ham. Marissa had made the dinner, which should have been my second warning sign. The woman couldn't cook to save her life. The ham was dry as cardboard, the mashed potatoes were gluey, and the green bean casserole tasted like it came straight from a can without even being heated properly. But I smiled and ate it because that's what you do. You don't criticize your daughter-in-law's cooking on Christmas Eve, even if it tastes like recycled newspaper. Around the 3rd or 4th bite, my stomach started doing backflips. "You okay, Dad?" Evan asked. He was watching me with this weird expression I couldn't quite place. Not concern, exactly. Something else. "Fine," I said, reaching for my water glass. "Just ate too fast." The water tasted off. Metallic. I frowned at it, but everyone was looking at me now, so I forced a smile and set it down. "Frank, you look pale," Marissa said. She had this high, breathy voice that always made me think of cartoon mice. "Maybe you should lie down." "I'm fine," I repeated, but I wasn't. The room was starting to tilt a little, and there was this weird tingling sensation creeping up my arms. "Just need some air. I'll grab a glass of water from the kitchen." I pushed back from the table before anyone could argue. The kitchen was through a narrow hallway lined with family photos, mostly of Evan and Marissa, I noticed. Only 2 pictures included me, and both were from years ago. I filed that observation away without really thinking about it. The kitchen was small and outdated, all original 1980s fixtures and yellowing linoleum. Marissa was always complaining about it, hinting that they needed money to renovate. I'd helped them with the down payment on this place 5 years ago, but apparently that generosity had an expiration date. I was running water from the tap when I heard the voice. Marissa, on the phone, in the little alcove next to the pantry where they kept their recycling bins. "Don't worry," she was saying, her voice low and quick. "After Christmas, he won't be living there much longer. Evan's got everything lined up." I froze with the glass halfway to my lips. I know, she continued, "but we've been patient long enough. The house alone is worth almost $400,000. And his retirement account." I must have made some sound, because she went silent. Then I heard quick footsteps moving away, a door clicking shut. The basement door, probably. My hands were shaking. I set the glass down carefully, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. After Christmas, he won't be living there much longer. Living where? My house? The house I'd bought and paid for 32 years ago. The house where I'd raised both my kids, where their mother had died 6 years ago after her stroke. They were talking about my house. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe they were talking about someone else. But no, she'd said, "Evan's got everything lined up." My son. My son had something lined up that involved me not living in my own house anymore. The dizziness was getting worse. I leaned against the counter, and that's when I saw it. A folder, sitting on top of the refrigerator, partially hidden behind a decorative tin of Christmas cookies. It was one of those expandable file folders, the kind you use for important documents. The tab read, "Property Transfer Consulting, Rowell Case." Rowell. That was my name. My hands moved before my brain could catch up. I pulled the folder down and opened it right there in the kitchen, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The first document was a draft agreement from something called Elder Care Transition Services. The language was dense and legal, but certain phrases jumped out at me like they were written in neon. Diminished capacity to manage financial affairs, transfer of property management, recommended relocation to assisted living facility. Assisted living. They wanted to put me in a home. I flipped to the next page. An email chain between Evan and someone named Robert Pritchard, who apparently worked for a real estate investment company. The subject line read, Rowell Property, Timeline for Acquisition. The most recent email was from 3 days ago. Evan had written, Father remains unaware of proceedings. Anticipate transfer of property deed by mid-January. Will coordinate with sister regarding personal effects disposal. Personal effects disposal. They were talking about throwing away my stuff, throwing away my life. I heard footsteps in the hallway. My training as a carpenter kicked in, 30 years of muscle memory. I shoved the folder back on top of the fridge, grabbed my water glass, and turned around just as Evan walked in. There you are, he said, smiling that easy smile he'd inherited from his mother. He was tall like me, but softer. Office job soft. He'd never worked with his hands a day in his life, and it showed. We were getting worried. You okay? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Tried to see past the familiar features, the smile, the voice I'd heard every day for 29 years. Tried to see what was really there. Fine, I said. My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. Just needed some water. You look like you saw a ghost. He was studying me now, his smile fading into something more guarded. Are you sure you're feeling all right? The ham's sitting heavy, I said. Maybe I should head home soon. Something flickered across his face. Relief? Yeah, of course. We don't want you driving if you're not feeling well, though. Maybe you should stay the night. We've got the spare room all made up. The spare room. The room where they probably expected me to spend my final days before they shipped me off to some facility where I could drool into my oatmeal and watch game shows until I died. I'll be fine, I said. Fresh air will help. I walked past him, back into the dining room where Claire and Marissa were clearing plates. They both looked up as I entered, and I caught something pass between them. A glance. Quick, but there. The kind of glance that confirmed everything I'd just seen in that folder. They were all in on it. My daughter Claire, who I'd put through college, who I'd helped with her first apartment deposit, her student loans, her car when hers got totaled. She wouldn't meet my eyes now. I'm heading out, I announced, not feeling great. Oh no! Marissa's voice went up an octave. Was it the food? I told Evan I should have gotten a spiral ham instead of trying to cook one from scratch. It's fine, I said. Just tired. I got my coat from the rack by the door. My fingers felt numb. The tingling had spread from my arms to my chest now, and there was a bitter taste in my mouth that wouldn't go away no matter how much water I drank. Dad, seriously, maybe you shouldn't drive. Evan had followed me to the door. He put a hand on my shoulder, and I had to fight the urge to shove it off. You look really pale. I'm fine. I shrugged on my coat, patted my pockets for my keys. Call you tomorrow. Dad, I said I'm fine. I walked out before he could stop me. The cold air hit my face like a slap, sharp and clean and honest. The night was clear, stars visible despite the ambient glow from the neighbors' Christmas lights. Everything looked normal. Everything looked exactly like it should, but nothing was normal. Nothing would ever be normal again. I made it 3 steps down the driveway before my legs went out from under me. I didn't fall, caught myself on Evan's truck, but it was close. The dizziness was overwhelming now, and my heart was doing this weird stuttering thing that couldn't be good. Frank! Marissa's voice shrill behind me. Evan, something's wrong with your father. I heard footsteps, felt hands grabbing at me, Evan's voice. "Dad, sit down. Just sit down." "Get off me!" I shoved him away, or tried to. My arms felt like they belonged to someone else. "I'm going home. You can't drive like this." Evan was trying to take my keys now, actually reaching into my pocket. The fury that flooded through me then was like nothing I'd ever felt, red and hot and absolute. I said, "Get off me." I pushed harder this time, and he stumbled back, lost his footing on a patch of ice and went down hard on his ass. Good. Let him feel a fraction of what I was feeling. Marissa screamed, literally screamed, like I'd attacked him with a weapon instead of just pushing him away. Lights were coming on in the neighboring houses. People were looking out their windows, their Christmas dinners interrupted by the spectacle of the Rowell family falling apart in the driveway. "Dad, what the hell?" Evan was getting up, brushing ice and slush off his jeans. His face had gone hard. That was new. I'd never seen him look at me like that before. "Stay away from me." I got my keys in my hand, managed to take another step toward my truck. "All of you, just stay away." Claire was in the doorway now, her phone in her hand. "I'm calling 911. Don't you dare." I pointed at her, and she actually flinched. Good. Maybe she should be afraid. Maybe they all should. "I'm going home. To my home. The one I paid for. The one you're apparently planning to steal." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then Evan, "Dad, what are you talking about?" I laughed. It came out wrong, harsh and bitter. "Property transfer consulting. Elder care transition services. Does that ring any bells?" More silence. But this time it was different. This time it was the silence of people who'd been caught. "You went through our papers." Evan's voice had changed, lower now, dangerous. "You had no right." "No right?" The fury was making my vision blur. Or maybe that was whatever they'd put in my drink. "No right? It's my goddamn house you're trying to steal." "We're not stealing anything." Marissa again, doing her best innocent act. "Frank, honey, you're confused. Evan was just looking into options in case you ever need—" "I don't need anything." I got my truck door open. Somehow. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the handle. "Except for you people to stay the hell out of my life." I climbed in, started the engine. I backed out too fast, nearly clipped his mailbox. Didn't care. Just needed to get away, get home, figure out what the hell was happening. The drive home took 20 minutes. Longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept having to pull over to let the dizziness pass, to make sure I could still feel my hands on the wheel. Twice I nearly called 911 myself, but something stopped me. Some instinct that said if I ended up in a hospital, they'd use it against me. Proof I was too sick to live alone. Proof I needed to be relocated to a facility. I made it home. Barely. Pulled into my driveway and just sat there for a while, breathing, trying to process. My house looked the same as it always did. 2-story colonial, white with blue shutters. Nothing fancy, but mine. Paid off 3 years ago after 30 years of mortgage payments. The porch light was on, the same light I'd installed myself when we'd first moved in, back when Evan was 2 and Claire was just a baby. Back when my wife Linda was still alive, still laughing, still making everything better just by being there. God, I missed her. Missed her so much in that moment it was like a physical pain. She'd know what to do. She'd know how to fix this. But Linda was gone, and I was alone, and my kids were trying to take everything I had left. I went inside. The house was cold. I'd turned the heat down to save money while I was gone. Stupid habit, trying to save a few bucks when apparently my son was planning to liquidate my entire life. My medication bottles were on the kitchen counter where I'd left them, the usual collection of a man my age. I stared at them for a long time, thinking about how easy it would be to swap pills around, to give someone the wrong dose, to make them sick. The pills inside were the right color, the right size, but they were arranged differently than I remembered. I always stacked them the same way when I refilled the bottle, a stupid OCD habit from years of organizing hardware in my workshop. These weren't stacked right. Someone had been in here, in my house, in my medication. I dumped the pills out on the counter and counted them. Should have been 60. I'd just refilled the prescription 2 weeks ago. There were 54. 6 pills missing. 6 pills that could have been ground up and put into, say, a glass of water at Christmas dinner. My phone rang. Evan's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Claire this time. Voicemail. Then Marissa. Then Evan again. I turned the phone off. Then I went to my study and pulled out the file cabinet where I kept my important documents. House deed, insurance papers, bank statements, my will. It took me 3 hours to go through everything. 3 hours to confirm what I already knew in my gut. They'd been planning this for months. The deed to my house had a photocopy that showed different signatures. Practice runs, probably. My insurance beneficiary forms had been accessed. I could tell because they weren't in the right order. Someone had photographed my bank statements. There were fingerprint smudges on the pages that weren't mine. And my will. God, my will. The original was still there, but there was a second copy, a draft. One that hadn't been notarized yet. One that left everything split between Evan and Claire, with Evan as executor. Except I'd never written that version. My actual will left everything to a trust, with very specific instructions about how the money could be used. Money for my grandkids' education. Donations to the veterans' home where my father had spent his last years. The house could be sold, but only if both kids agreed, and the money had to be split equally with 10% going to charity. This new version had none of that. Just a straight split. Everything to the kids, Evan in control. They were forging my will. I sat in my study until sunrise, staring at the papers, trying to understand how I'd missed this, how I'd been so blind. But the answer was obvious, wasn't it? I'd trusted them. I'd loved them. I'd never imagined my own children could do this. My phone had 17 missed calls when I turned it back on. 12 from Evan, 3 from Claire, 2 from Marissa. No voicemails. They knew better than to leave evidence. I didn't call back. Instead, I made a list, started writing down everything I knew, everything I'd found, dates, times, documents, evidence, because that's what this was going to take. Not emotion, not tears or anger or betrayal, evidence and revenge. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. By morning, I had a plan. Not a complete plan, but the beginning of one. First order of business. Figure out exactly how bad this was. I made coffee, forced down some toast even though my stomach was still churning, and went to my computer. I'm not great with technology. Linda was always the one who handled anything more complicated than email, but I could do basic searches. Elder Care Transition Services returned about 15 results. It was a real company, apparently. Based in Portland, specializing in compassionate relocation solutions for seniors and their families. The website was full of smiling old people and reassuring language about maintaining dignity and respecting autonomy. Bullshit. It was a company that helped families put their parents in homes, probably got kickbacks from the facilities they recommended. I clicked through to their services page. One section caught my eye. Family Coordination Support. The description made my skin crawl. We understand that sometimes difficult conversations need to happen without causing undue stress to your loved one. Our counselors can help facilitate the transition process discreetly, with or without direct involvement from the senior family member. Translation: they'd help you put your parent away without them knowing it was happening. I searched for Robert Pritchard Real Estate, found him on LinkedIn, Senior Acquisitions Manager for Northeast Property Solutions. His profile picture showed a guy in his 40s, slicked back hair, expensive suit. The kind of guy who'd probably call himself a disruptor, and think buying people's houses out from under them was some kind of noble service. His company specialized in strategic property acquisition for development opportunities. More bullshit language. They bought houses, probably from desperate people or through legal manipulation, then flipped them or developed the land. I clicked through to the company website. There was a section about their elder transition program. Apparently, they worked directly with families to facilitate smooth property transfers while respecting senior autonomy and dignity. There was that word again, dignity. They kept using it like a shield, like if they said it enough times it would somehow make what they were doing okay. I was writing all this down when my doorbell rang. I froze. Through the front window, I could see a police cruiser in my driveway. For a second, I thought about not answering. But that would only make things worse, and besides, I hadn't done anything wrong. I was the victim here. I opened the door. The cop was young, maybe 30, with that clean-cut look they all have. His nameplate read, Bishop. "Mr. Rowell?" he said. "Frank Rowell?" "That's me." "I'm Officer Dale Bishop. Your son called this morning, said he was worried about you. Said you had some kind of episode last night at his house?" Of course. Of course Evan would call the cops. Start building his case that I was unstable, incompetent, dangerous even. "I'm fine," I said. "Had some bad food, got dizzy, that's all." Bishop was looking past me into the house. "Mind if I come in? Just want to make sure everything's okay?" It wasn't really a question. I stepped aside and let him in. He walked through my living room, taking everything in with those cop eyes. The house was clean. I'm not a slob. But I could see it the way he probably saw it. Old furniture, dated decor, the kind of place where an old man lived alone. "Your son mentioned you pushed him," Bishop said, turning to face me. "Said you seemed confused, aggressive." "I didn't push him." The lie came easily. He slipped on the ice, and I wasn't confused. I was angry. Angry about what? I almost told him. Almost pulled out all the documents I'd found and showed him exactly what my son was trying to do. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way Bishop was looking at me. Not unkind, but not exactly sympathetic either. Like he'd already made up his mind about what kind of situation this was. Concerned children, difficult elderly parent, tale as old as time. "Family stuff," I said instead. "Nothing that concerns you." Bishop nodded slowly. "Mr. Rowell, your son also mentioned he's been worried about you for a while. Said you've been forgetting things, having trouble managing your finances." "That's not true." "He said you've been late paying bills, that you had your utilities shut off last month." "That was a banking error." The anger was rising again, hot and sharp. "The payment didn't go through because the bank changed their system. It was fixed in 2 days." But I could see it didn't matter. Bishop had his narrative, the one Evan had fed him. Confused old man can't manage his affairs, pushing people around when he gets frustrated. "Look," Bishop said, his voice going softer, more careful. "Nobody's saying you're a bad person, Mr. Rowell, but sometimes people need help and they don't realize it. Your kids are concerned. My kids are trying to steal my house." The words came out flat, hard. Bishop blinked. "Excuse me?" "They're trying to steal my house," I repeated. "I found the paperwork. They're working with some company to get me declared incompetent so they can take control of my property." Bishop's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or pity. "Have you talked to your son about this?" "I found the papers at his house. He knows I know." "And you're sure about what you saw? Sometimes these things can be misunderstood." "I'm not senile," I snapped. "I know what I read. They want to put me in a home and sell my house." A long silence. Bishop was studying me now, probably trying to decide if I was paranoid or if there was something real here. "Mr. Rowell," he said finally, "if you really believe your family is trying to take advantage of you, you need to talk to a lawyer. Get your affairs in order legally, but creating confrontations, pushing people, making accusations, that's only going to make things worse. He called you? I said. My son called you to make me look unstable. Don't you see? This is part of it. They're building a case. Or, Bishop said carefully, they're genuinely worried about you. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his face. To him, I was just another confused old man, paranoid about his own family. Am I being charged with anything? I asked. No, sir. This is just a wellness check, but I'd strongly suggest you reach out to your family. Try to work this out. And if you're feeling threatened or confused, there are resources. I'm not confused. I walked to the door and opened it. Thanks for stopping by. Bishop hesitated, then nodded. Take care of yourself, Mr. Rowell. I watched him drive away, my hands shaking with rage. They were already poisoning the well, making sure that if I tried to fight this, nobody would believe me. I went back to my computer and pulled up my bank accounts. Started looking for anything unusual, any signs they'd already started accessing my money. Nothing obvious. But then I noticed something strange in my checking account history. 3 transactions, each for exactly $1, all within the last week. They'd been immediately refunded, so the net balance was 0. It looked like some kind of verification process. Someone had been checking if my account was active, testing if they could access it. I called my bank, got transferred 3 times before I reached someone who could actually help. Yes, Mr. Rowell, the woman said. She sounded tired. Those were verification pings. They happen when someone adds a new payee or sets up a transfer. I didn't set up any new payees. Let me check. Okay, it looks like these came from a request to add joint account access. Did you recently fill out paperwork for that? No. Well, the request was initiated but not completed. We'd need both parties to come in and sign the actual paperwork. Do you want me to flag this account? Prevent any changes without your in-person authorization? Yes, do that. And I want to change all my passwords. Everything. I can help you with that. One moment. It took 30 minutes to secure everything. New passwords, new security questions, alerts set up for any attempted changes. The woman was patient with me, didn't make me feel stupid when I had to write everything down to remember it. When I hung up, I felt slightly better. At least they wouldn't be able to access my money easily. But it was temporary relief. I knew it was temporary, because they didn't need my money if they could get me declared incompetent. Then they'd just be appointed as my legal guardians and they could do whatever they wanted. I needed help. Real help. Not the cops, who'd already dismissed me as a confused old man. Not my family, who were the problem. I needed someone who understood the law, who could fight this kind of thing. I needed a lawyer. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. There was only one lawyer I knew personally, Melissa Denning. She'd done the paperwork for Linda's estate after she died, helped me navigate all the legal nonsense. We'd kept in touch, trading Christmas cards and occasional emails. I called her office, got her secretary, asked if Melissa was available. She's with a client right now, the secretary said. Can I take a message? Tell her Frank Rowell called. It's urgent. Is this regarding an existing case? No, it's... Tell her my kids are trying to steal my house. A pause. Excuse me? Just tell her that. She'll understand. Another pause, longer this time. Then, please hold. 2 minutes later, Melissa's voice. Frank? What's going on? I told her everything. The dinner, the folder, the documents, the emails, the police visit this morning, the bank account access attempts, everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. Frank, she said finally, are you absolutely sure about what you saw? Because if you're right, this is seriously problematic. But if you're misinterpreting things, I'm not misinterpreting anything, I said. I know what I read. Okay, I believe you. Can you come to my office this afternoon? Bring everything you found, any documents you have. We need to look at this carefully. What can they actually do? I asked. Legally, I mean. Can they really take my house? It's complicated, Melissa said. In theory, adult children can petition for guardianship if they believe a parent is incompetent. But they need evidence, medical evaluations, documented incidents of impaired judgment. They can't just file papers and have you declared incompetent. There's a process. But if they're already working with these companies, building a case, then we need to get ahead of it. Frank, I'm going to be honest with you. These kinds of family disputes are ugly. They're expensive, and they're emotionally devastating. Are you sure you want to fight this? Because once we start, there's no going back. They tried to drug me, I said. They're forging documents. They've been in my house without permission, going through my things. They're not asking me what I want. They're just taking. Then we fight, Melissa said. But Frank, you need to be smart about this. No more confrontations, no pushing people, no angry outbursts. They're building a narrative that you're unstable. We can't give them ammunition. So what do? Document everything. Secure your assets. Don't engage with them directly. And for God's sake, don't do anything that could be construed as threatening or erratic. They're trying to steal my life, I said. You want me to just sit here and smile? No, Melissa said. I want you to be strategic. This is war, Frank. And in war, you need to think 3 moves ahead. I hung up, feeling both better and worse. Better because I had someone on my side. Worse because now it was real. Really real. I was about to go to war with my own children. I spent the rest of the day preparing, gathered all my documents, made copies of everything, organized it all in a binder, took photos of my medication bottles with my phone, documenting how many pills were in each one, changed my locks, simple deadbolts, nothing fancy, but enough to keep anyone from walking in with an old key. My phone kept ringing. Evan, Claire, Marissa, over and over. I didn't answer. What would I say? I know what you're doing. Come clean and we can work this out? There was no working this out. They'd crossed a line you can't uncross. Around 6 p.m., Claire showed up at my door. I watched her through the window, debating whether to let her in. She looked upset. Good. Let her be upset. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Dad? She said. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. We need to talk. About what? About how you're planning to steal my house? About how you've been helping your brother forge documents? It's not like that. Then what's it like, Claire? Explain it to me. Make me understand why my own daughter would do this. She was crying now, really crying. Dad, we're worried about you. You're not yourself. You pushed Evan last night. You're paranoid. You're not eating right. I pushed him because he was trying to drug me, I said. Did he tell you that part? Did he tell you there are pills missing from my medication? You're confused. Stop saying that. I was yelling now, couldn't help it. I'm not confused. I found the folder, Claire. I saw the emails. I know what you're planning. Dad, please. She reached for my arm and I pulled away. We're trying to help you. That's all we're doing. You need support. You need... Get out. Dad, get out of my house. She flinched back like I'd hit her. For a moment we just stood there staring at each other across the threshold. My daughter. My little girl who I'd read bedtime stories to, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd walked down the aisle at her wedding 3 years ago. A stranger. That's what she was now, a stranger with my daughter's face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry you feel this way. Then she turned and left. I closed the door and locked it, all the locks. Then I went to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time since Linda died, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I knew what I was going to have to do. If they wanted war, I'd give them war. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was fighting. The first piece of ammunition came from Marissa herself, or rather, from her iPad. 3 years ago, when they'd first bought their house, they'd both been over for dinner. Marissa had been complaining about her tablet running slow, and I'd offered to look at it. She'd handed it over without a second thought, probably figuring the old man couldn't do much damage. But I'd set up Linda's iPad years earlier. I knew enough to be dangerous. What Marissa didn't know, what she'd clearly forgotten, was that I'd connected her tablet to my home Wi-Fi network that night. And because I'm paranoid about security, my network logged every device that connected to it. Her tablet was still logged in, still syncing to the cloud, still backing up her messages and emails and photos. I spent a week going through everything. It was like archaeology, digging through layers of someone's life. Most of it was boring: shopping lists, calendar appointments, messages about dinner plans, and whose turn it was to take out the trash. But then I found the good stuff. Text messages between Marissa and someone named Jason. Flirty at first, then explicit. Photos, videos, meeting arrangements. This had been going on for at least 6 months. Marissa was cheating on Evan. I saved everything. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence. Backed it up 3 different ways. Then I started looking at Evan's communications. He'd been smarter about covering his tracks, but not smart enough. His work laptop was listed on the network logs too. He'd brought it over once when he needed to work from home at my place. I couldn't access the laptop itself, but I could see some of his cloud storage, work documents mostly. But buried in there were the smoking guns, detailed financial projections showing what he'd make from selling my house, spreadsheets calculating the value of my retirement accounts, email exchanges with that property acquisition company discussing how to maximize the property value, and then the real prize, messages between Evan and Claire. Not about me, about Marissa. Evan knew his wife was cheating, had known for months, and he was planning to use it. "When we get guardianship," one message read, "I'll file for divorce. Take everything. She's got no idea what's coming." Evan wasn't just trying to steal from me. He was planning to screw over his wife too. Use me as the stepping stone to clean out Marissa, then move on to whatever life he'd planned for himself. Everyone was using everyone. It was perfect. Perfect in the worst possible way. I compiled everything into a single document, printed it out, made copies, stored them in 3 separate locations. This was my nuclear option. The thing I'd use when the time was right. But I needed more. Needed to understand the full scope of what they were planning. That's when I made a decision that crossed a line. I knew it was crossing a line. Did it anyway. I broke into Evan's house. Not literally broke in. I still had a key from years ago, from back when I used to water their plants when they were on vacation. They'd never asked for it back, probably forgot I had it. I waited until a Tuesday afternoon when I knew they'd both be at work. Drove to their neighborhood, parked 3 blocks away, walked to their house like I belonged there. The key still worked. I was inside for less than 20 minutes. Didn't touch anything they'd notice. Just looked, photographed, documented. Found the folder from Elder Care Transition Services in Evan's home office. It was even more damning than what I'd seen at Christmas. Detailed plans, facility recommendations, financial projections. A timeline that had me relocated by March. Found documents from that lawyer Shaw, drafts of the guardianship petition, medical evaluations they'd somehow obtained from doctors I'd never seen, based on observations from family members, complete fabrications. Found Marissa's diary, actual physical diary hidden in her nightstand. I almost didn't take it, but then I thought, screw it. If she can plan to throw me in a home and steal my house, I can read her diary. The entries were damning. Not about me. She barely mentioned me. About Evan. About how much she hated him. How she was only staying in the marriage long enough to get what she needed. How she was planning her own exit strategy. Everyone scheming. Everyone lying. It was almost funny. I took photos of everything, then left. Made sure everything was exactly as I'd found it. Locked the door behind me. On the drive home, I felt nothing. No guilt. No shame. Just cold calculation. They'd started this war. They'd declared me expendable, incompetent, in the way. They'd plotted to take everything I had. Now, I was going to show them what happens when you underestimate a man with nothing left to lose. New Year's Eve came and went. I spent it alone in my house, drinking cheap whiskey and watching the ball drop on TV. When the clock struck midnight, I raised my glass to the empty room. "Here's to new beginnings," I said, "and burning bridges." The next morning, hungover and mean, I got the call from Melissa. "They filed," she said. "The petition for guardianship was submitted this morning. First hearing is January 15th. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to prepare for a court battle that would determine my entire future." What happens at the hearing? Both sides present evidence. You'll testify. Evan will testify. Medical experts might testify. The judge will evaluate everything and make a determination about whether you're capable of managing your own affairs. And if the judge says I'm not? Then Evan becomes your guardian. He'll have legal authority over your finances, your medical care, your living situation. You'd essentially become a ward of the court. "That might be what it comes to," Melissa said quietly. "If you lose this case and refuse to cooperate, they could have you forcibly removed from your home, put in a facility against your will. It happens, Frank, more often than you'd think." I felt that cold rage again, that certainty that this would not stand, could not stand. "We won't lose," I said. "I hope you're right." I spent the next 3 days preparing, going through every document, every piece of evidence, making sure everything was organized, clear, undeniable. But I also prepared something else. My nuclear option. The thing that would detonate their entire world, if it came to that. On January 4th, a Thursday, I got a call from someone I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, professional but cold. "Mr. Rowell, this is Dr. Sarah Mitchell from Comprehensive Behavioral Health. I'm calling to schedule your competency evaluation." "I already had a competency evaluation, Dr. Patterson." He cleared me. "Yes, I have that report, but the court has requested a second opinion. It's standard procedure in contested guardianship cases." "Who requested it? Evan?" "I can't discuss the details of who." "It was Evan. He didn't like the results of the first evaluation, so he's shopping for a different one." Silence on the other end. Then, "The evaluation has been court-ordered, Mr. Rowell. You're legally required to participate. We have an opening this Friday at 2 p.m. Will that work for you?" "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." I took the appointment. Called Melissa immediately after. "They're evaluating me again. Someone named Mitchell." Shaw must have argued that Patterson was biased because we hired him. The judge probably ordered a neutral evaluation. "Is Mitchell neutral?" "I'll find out. But Frank, you need to be very careful at this evaluation. Don't show anger. Don't rant about Evan. Just answer questions calmly and honestly." "What if she's in Evan's pocket?" "Then we'll challenge her findings, but you have to give her nothing to work with. Understand?" I understood. The evaluation was worse than Patterson's. Mitchell was younger, sharper, more aggressive with her questions. "Tell me about your relationship with your son." "It's complicated." "How so?" "He's trying to steal my house." "That's a very serious accusation. Can you explain what makes you think that?" I explained, showed her the documents, the emails, the financial projections, everything. She made notes without expression. "And you obtained these documents how?" "I found them." "Where?" "At his house." "So you went to your son's house and went through his private papers?" "I had a key." "Did he give you permission to go through his papers?" "No." "So you broke into his house and invaded his privacy without permission?" That's when I realized. Mitchell wasn't neutral. She was already working an angle, already building a narrative, breaking and entering, invasion of privacy, paranoid thinking, anger issues. I was screwed. The rest of the evaluation was a disaster. Every answer I gave, she twisted. Every piece of evidence I presented, she dismissed. By the end, I felt like I'd just talked myself into a mental institution. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Rowell," Mitchell said, standing. "I'll submit my report to the court by the end of the week." "You already know what you're going to write, don't you?" She paused. "I write what my evaluation supports." "He paid you. Evan paid you to write what he needs." "Mr. Rowell, these kinds of accusations are exactly what concern me about your judgment. Unfounded paranoia, hostility toward family members, evidence of breaking and entering. Get out." "Excuse me? Get out of my house. This evaluation is over." She left without another word. I called Melissa immediately. "It was a setup," I said. "Mitchell was working for Evan the whole time." "You don't know that." "I know it. Trust me, I know it." "What happened?" I told her everything, about the questions, the twisting, the accusations. When I finished, Melissa was quiet for a long time. "This is bad," she said finally. "If Mitchell writes a report saying you're paranoid, aggressive, engaging in illegal behavior, then we fight it, challenge her credentials, her neutrality, whatever it takes. Frank, we might not have time. The hearing is in 11 days. If her report comes in and supports guardianship, the judge might rule immediately." So what do I do? Honestly, I don't know. We need something that completely undermines their case. Something that proves beyond doubt that Evan is the problem, not you. I had it. The nuclear option, the presentation. But if I used it, there was no going back, no reconciliation, no possibility of salvaging anything with my family. Then again, there was nothing left to salvage. "I have something," I told Melissa, "but it's going to make this uglier than you can imagine." "How much uglier?" "Marriage ending, career ending, life destroying, ugly." "Frank, what did you do?" "Nothing yet, but I'm about to." I spent that weekend finalizing everything, made copies of copies, set up automated emails to go out if I didn't cancel them, backup plans for my backup plans. Monday morning, I sent the first bomb. An email to Marissa's parents. Subject line, "Things you should know about your daughter's marriage." Attached, 30 pages of text messages between Marissa and Jason. Every explicit message, every photo, every plan to meet up behind Evan's back. And a note, "Your daughter is using you to help steal my house while carrying on an affair. Thought you should know what kind of person she really is." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The second bomb went to Evan's boss. The evidence of all his bank visits, his meetings with property developers, his planning to liquidate assets that weren't his. And a note. "This is what your employee does on company time." The third went to Claire's school board. Her DUI arrest record, the full details, and a note. "This woman is teaching your children while hiding her criminal past." I knew it was cruel, knew it was probably illegal, knew I was burning every bridge I'd ever built, didn't care, not anymore. They wanted to destroy me, I'd destroy them right back. The fallout started within hours. My phone exploded with calls, Evan, Marissa, Claire, even Claire's husband. I didn't answer any of them. Then the threatening voicemails started. "How could you?" Claire crying. "How could you do this to me? You've ruined everything." "You'll pay for this." Marissa, surprisingly calm. "I'm filing a restraining order, and then I'm pressing charges for harassment, invasion of privacy, everything I can think of." Good. Let them be angry. Let them feel a fraction of what they'd done to me. Melissa called that evening. "Frank, what the hell did you do?" "What I had to do. Shaw called me. He's filing emergency motions. They want you evaluated for psychiatric commitment. They're arguing you're a danger to yourself and others." Let them argue. "Frank, listen to me. If they get a psychiatric hold, they can have you committed to a hospital for observation. Once you're there, it's much harder to fight the guardianship. Do you understand? You're playing right into their hands." Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd gone too far. But I wasn't done yet. "Tell Shaw I want a meeting," I said. "All of us, me, Evan, Claire, the lawyers. Before the hearing. I want to talk. Are you insane? After what you just did? Set it up, please. One meeting. Then whatever happens, happens. Melissa sighed. I'll try. But Frank, be prepared for them to say no. They didn't say no. That surprised me. The meeting was set for Wednesday, 3 days before the hearing. Neutral location, Melissa's office. I spent those 3 days preparing my final move, the ultimate bomb, the one that would end this once and for all. Wednesday came. I drove to Melissa's office feeling calm, focused, ready. Evan and Claire were already there when I arrived. No Marissa. Apparently she'd filed for divorce that morning. Fastest turnaround I'd ever seen. Claire wouldn't look at me, just sat in her chair staring at the floor. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd clearly been crying for days. Evan stared at me with pure hatred. You destroyed my life. You tried to destroy mine first, I said. We were trying to help you. By stealing my house? By drugging me? By forging documents? Shaw, Evan's lawyer, held up a hand. Let's all calm down. We're here to see if there's any possibility of resolution before this goes to court. There's not, Evan said flatly. I want him committed. I want full guardianship. And then I want him to spend the rest of his miserable life knowing what he did to this family. Evan, Claire started, but he cut her off. No, he sent my wife's affair to her parents. He sent my financial records to my boss. He destroyed your career, Claire. Why are you defending him? I'm not defending anyone, Claire said quietly. I just want this to stop. It stops when he's locked up where he belongs. I looked at my son, really looked at him, tried to find something in his face that resembled the boy I'd raised, found nothing. You know what the really sad thing is? I said. If you'd just talked to me, we could have worked something out. If you'd said, Dad, we're worried about you, can we help? I would have listened. But you didn't want to help. You wanted to control. You wanted my money, and you were willing to destroy me to get it. That's not true. It is true. I pulled out a folder, the same folder I'd found at Christmas. It's all here, every plan, every calculation, every lie. You didn't want to help me. You wanted to profit off me. That folder is private property, Shaw said. You obtained it illegally. I don't care. I opened it, started reading. The financial projections, the timeline for relocating me, the notes about minimal resistance expected. By the time I finished, Claire was crying openly. Even Shaw looked uncomfortable. You were going to put me in a home by March, I said. Sell my house by April. Liquidate my retirement by June. Split the money and go on with your lives like I never existed. Evan said nothing, just stared at me with that cold hatred. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. Tomorrow I'm withdrawing my entire retirement account. Every penny. I'm closing all my bank accounts. I'm putting the house in an irrevocable trust that neither of you can touch. And then I'm going to live out the rest of my days knowing you get nothing. You can't do that, Shaw said. The guardianship petition will freeze your assets. The hearing's not for 3 more days. I'll have everything moved by then. The judge will reverse it. Rule that you were acting under duress. Prove it. I stood up. Prove I was incompetent when I made those decisions. You can't. Patterson's evaluation is clean. And now you'll have to prove that everything I did, all the evidence I gathered, all the planning, was the work of a mentally incompetent person. Good luck with that. I looked at Evan one last time. You could have had a father. Instead, you chose to have an enemy. Hope it was worth it. I walked out. Melissa followed me into the hallway. Frank, you can't actually do this. The legal ramifications. Watch me. I left before she could stop me. That night, I started making arrangements. Called my bank, started the process of liquidating everything. Called a trust attorney Melissa had recommended months ago, set up an emergency meeting. My phone kept ringing. Evan, Claire, Melissa. I ignored all of them. Around midnight, I heard a car in my driveway, then pounding on my door. I looked through the window. Evan. Alone. I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" He pushed past me into the house. He was drunk. I could smell it on him. "You really did it," he said. "You really destroyed everything." "You started this." "I started this?" He spun around, getting in my face. "I tried to help you. You're old, you're alone, you were making mistakes." "I wasn't making mistakes. You can't even remember to take your pills right. The house is falling apart. You're living on canned soup and denial. So your solution was to steal from me?" "It wasn't stealing." He was shouting now. "It was planning. It was making sure you were taken care of." "By putting me in a home against my will?" "Yes, because you're too stubborn to see that you need help." We stood there, breathing hard, staring at each other. Father and son, enemies. "Get out," I said quietly. "Marissa left me. Did you know that? Filed for divorce this morning, because of what you sent, because you couldn't just let things happen naturally." "Naturally? There's nothing natural about what you were doing." "And Claire got fired. The school board saw your email about her DUI. Fired her on the spot. She's got 2 kids, Dad. 2 kids and now no job. Because of you." "Because of you," I corrected. "You blackmailed her into helping. You used her past against her. Don't put that on me." Evan laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You know what? You're right. I did blackmail her. I did manipulate her. Know why? Because I learned from the best. You think I don't remember growing up in this house? The way you and Mom fought? The way you controlled everything? I learned how to be a bastard from you, Dad. So congratulations. Your son turned out just like you." He walked out then. Slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there in the silence, his words echoing in my head. Your son turned out just like you. Was he right? Had I created this monster? Didn't matter now. It was too late to undo any of it. I went to bed that night not knowing if I'd sleep, but exhaustion won out, and I did sleep, deep and dreamless, until the fire alarm woke me at 3 a.m. Smoke. The smell hit me before I was fully awake, thick and acrid, burning my throat. I stumbled out of bed, my mind still foggy. The alarm was screaming, and there was an orange glow coming from downstairs. Fire. The house was on fire. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and ran to the bedroom door. Touched it. Hot. Not burning yet, but hot. I dialed 911 while moving to the window. "There's a fire at 247 Maple Street. My house is on fire." "Sir, are you inside the house?" "Yes." "You need to get out immediately. Don't try to fight the fire." I was already throwing open the window, 2nd floor, too high to jump safely, but there was a tree close by. Same tree I'd told Evan to stop climbing when he was 8. Ironic. I climbed out onto the ledge, reached for a branch. 57 years old, and I was climbing out windows like a teenager. The branch held. Barely. I scrambled down, scraping my hands, tearing my pajamas. Hit the ground hard. Something in my ankle gave way. Pain shot up my leg. Didn't matter. Had to get away from the house. I limped to the street just as the fire broke through the upstairs windows. Glass exploded outward, and flames shot into the night sky. Neighbors were coming out now, silhouettes in doorways. Someone ran toward me with a blanket. "Frank! Oh my God, are you okay?" Mrs. Patterson from 3 houses down. I couldn't answer. Just watched my house burn. Fire trucks arrived 7 minutes later. By then, the whole 2nd floor was engulfed. The firefighters ran hoses, shouted commands, but I could see it was too late. Everything inside was gone. 30 years of my life. Burning. An EMT tried to check me over, but I pushed him away. "I'm fine." "Sir, you're bleeding." "I said I'm fine." I stood there watching until sunrise, watching the firefighters put out the last of the flames. watching my house become a blackened shell. The fire chief approached me around 6 a.m. "Mr. Rowell, I'm Chief Hendricks. We need to ask you some questions." "Okay." "Do you know how the fire started?" "No." "Were you burning candles? Cooking anything?" "I was asleep." "Do you smoke?" "No." He made notes. "One of my men found evidence of accelerant in the living room. Looks like gasoline. This fire was deliberately set." "What?" "Someone started this fire intentionally. You have any idea who'd want to do that?" I knew. Of course I knew. But I couldn't prove it. And even if I could, what would I say? "No," I said. "No idea." Hendricks didn't believe me. I could see it in his face. "Mr. Rowell, arson is a serious crime. If someone tried to hurt you—" I said I don't know. He handed me a card. "When you're ready to talk, call me." I spent the rest of the morning at the hospital getting checked out. Minor burns on my hands, sprained ankle, smoke inhalation. They wanted to keep me for observation, but I refused. "Where are you going to go?" the nurse asked. "Your house is destroyed." Good question. I couldn't stay with Evan or Claire. Couldn't afford a hotel long term. My bank accounts were in the process of being liquidated, but that would take days. I called Melissa. No answer. Called again. Nothing. Finally, she called back around noon. "Frank, I heard about the fire. Are you okay?" "Where were you?" "In court. My phone was off. What happened?" "Someone burned down my house, used gasoline, deliberately." Silence. Then, "Oh my God. It was Evan." "You don't know that." "It was him. He was here last night, drunk and angry. This morning my house burns down. You do the math." "Frank, you can't make accusations without proof. If you tell the police you think it was Evan without evidence, you'll look crazy? Paranoid? Yeah, I know. Everyone already thinks that anyway." "Where are you now?" "Hospital. They're releasing me soon. I don't know where to go." "Come to my house. Just for a few days until we figure something out." "Are you sure?" "Yes. I'll text you the address." I took a cab to Melissa's place. She lived in a small Cape Cod on the other side of town. When she opened the door, her face was full of concern. "Jesus, Frank, you look like hell." "Feel like it too." She led me inside, got me settled on her couch with coffee and blankets. I called Shaw, told him about the fire. He swears Evan had nothing to do with it. Of course he does. "Frank, the hearing is in 2 days. If you show up making unsubstantiated accusations about arson, then what? They'll think I'm even crazier? I'm done playing nice." "You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking perfectly clearly." I stood up too fast. My ankle protested, but I ignored it. "They're not going to stop, don't you see? First they tried to drug me, then they tried to legally take control. Then we need to be strategic. We need evidence. I need to end this, once and for all." I spent the next day planning. Not legal strategy. Something else. Something Melissa wouldn't approve of. The morning of the hearing, I woke up with perfect clarity. I knew what I had to do. I got dressed in the one suit I'd managed to save from the fire. It had been in my truck, put on a tie, looked in the mirror. I looked old, tired, beaten down. Good. Let them think that. The hearing was at 10 a.m. Melissa drove us there in silence. She'd tried one last time to talk me out of whatever I was planning, but I'd refused to discuss it. "Just trust me," I'd said. "That's what worries me," she'd replied. The courtroom was small. Wood paneling, American flag in the corner, judge's bench at the front. Felt like a place where lives got decided by strangers who didn't really understand the situation. Evan was already there with Shaw. He looked terrible, red eyes, unshaven, like he'd been up all night. Good. Claire wasn't there. Apparently, she'd declined to testify. Smart move. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s, gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. She looked tired, too. Probably handled cases like this all the time. Families destroying each other over money and control. This is the matter of the guardianship petition for Frank Rowell, she said. Let's begin. Shaw went first, presented his case. Evan's concerns about my welfare, the incidents of erratic behavior, the break-in at Evan's house, the fire that I'd possibly set myself. He was good, made me sound dangerous, unstable, in need of intervention. Then it was Melissa's turn. She presented Patterson's evaluation, the evidence of Evan's planning, the financial projections showing his true motives. The judge listened to everything without expression. Then she asked me to testify. I walked to the stand, was sworn in, sat down. Mr. Rowell, the judge said, I've reviewed the evidence from both sides. I have to say, this is one of the more contentious cases I've seen. Tell me, in your own words, what's going on here. I looked at Evan. He was staring at me with that hatred again. Your Honor, I said, my son is trying to steal my house. That's a serious accusation. I have proof, documentation of his plans, emails, financial records. He's been planning this for months. Mr. Shaw argues that you obtained those documents illegally. I used a key my son gave me years ago, to a house he lives in with my help. I don't consider that illegal. What about the fire at your home? Someone burned it down deliberately, used gasoline. The fire chief confirmed it was arson. Do you know who did it? This was the moment, the decision point. I could accuse Evan, destroy any chance at reconciliation forever, or I could stay silent, let this play out legally. No, Your Honor, I don't know who did it. Surprise flickered across the judge's face. She'd clearly expected me to blame Evan. Mr. Rowell, your son is here requesting guardianship because he believes you're not capable of managing your own affairs. Based on the evidence, it appears you've been making some questionable decisions, breaking into his home, sending damaging information to his employer and family members, liquidating your assets suddenly. These don't seem like the actions of someone thinking clearly. With all due respect, Your Honor, everything I did was in response to my son's attempts to take control of my life without my consent. I was defending myself. By breaking the law, by using the tools available to me. The judge leaned back. This is a difficult situation. On one hand, I see evidence that your son may have been planning to take advantage of you financially. On the other hand, I see evidence that you've been engaging in impulsive, potentially illegal behavior. Your Honor, Melissa interjected. May I redirect? Go ahead. Mr. Rowell, let me ask you this. If this guardianship is granted, what do you think will happen to you? I'll be put in a facility against my will. My assets will be liquidated. I'll lose everything I've worked for my entire life. And why do you believe your son wants that? Because he told me, not in those words but in his actions, he doesn't want to help me. He wants to control me, and if I don't cooperate, he'll make sure I suffer. The judge wrote something down. All right, I need to hear from the petitioner, Mr. Rowell, Evan Rowell. Please take the stand. Evan stood, walked to the stand, was sworn in. Mr. Rowell, the judge said, why are you seeking guardianship of your father? Because I'm worried about him, Your Honor. He's changed. He's paranoid. He sees conspiracy everywhere. He's hurting people. My wife, my sister, me. I just want to make sure he's safe. Your father claims you were planning to take his house and liquidate his assets for your own benefit. Is that true? No. Everything I did was exploring options in case he needed care. I wasn't trying to steal anything. But you did those explorations without his knowledge? Because he's not rational. If I'd told him, he would have reacted exactly like he did react, with violence and paranoia. I see. And the fire at his home? I had nothing to do with that. Where were you the night of the fire? Evan hesitated. At home. Alone? My wife had just left me. So yes, alone. Can anyone verify that? No. The judge made more notes. Then she sat back and looked at both of us. I'm going to be honest with you both. This is messy. There's evidence of wrongdoing on both sides. Mr. Rowell, Evan, you clearly overstepped by planning major changes to your father's life without his input. That's concerning. But Mr. Rowell, Frank, your response has been equally concerning. Breaking and entering, harassment, potentially arson. I didn't set that fire, I said. I'm not making accusations. I'm simply noting that there's a lot of anger and mistrust here, and that makes this decision very difficult. She paused. Then, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to order a third-party evaluation, a neutral psychiatric professional who's not connected to either of you. They'll assess your mental state, your capacity, your living situation. Based on that evaluation, I'll make a final determination about the guardianship. How long will that take? Melissa asked. 30 days. In the meantime, I'm issuing a mutual restraining order. Mr. Rowell, Evan, you are not to contact your father or come within 500 feet of him. Mr. Rowell, Frank, same goes for you. No contact, no proximity. If either of you violates this order, there will be consequences. Your Honor, Shaw started, but the judge held up a hand. This hearing is adjourned. We'll reconvene in 30 days with the third-party evaluation. She banged her gavel. It was over, for now. Melissa drove me back to her house. We didn't talk. There was nothing to say. I'd won a temporary reprieve, but I hadn't won the war, and I knew deep in my bones that Evan wasn't going to wait 30 days. He was going to make another move, soon. I just had to be ready for it.